What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik of the Fight Guys, and I'm also a Forbes contributor. And I want to talk today about Canelo Alvarez's next move. Who is Canelo going to fight next? It's a question that a lot of people throughout the boxing community are asking right now. Obviously, it makes sense because Canelo is one of the biggest stars, humongous deals with Golden Boy and with the Zone, and it's natural. Last time out, he won a unanimous decision over Daniel Jacobs. So what's next? There's a few possibilities, right? So right now, there's about four serious options for Canelo. Uh, at one point, we probably wouldn't have thought that it was four, and if it was four, maybe it wouldn't have been these four names. But you have to consider on the list for Canelo right now, obviously, Gennady Golovkin, which would be a third fight. There's also Sergey Kovalev, the 175-pound champion, that's on the list. Callum Smith, guy who has to be considered the guy at super middleweight, 168 pounds. And the fourth one, this one just actually kind of came out today, and I'm saying today meaning Tuesday night. Jaime Munguia, 154 champ, 6 foot tall. I just did a video about how it was a bad idea for him to fight Golovkin, but his name is being thrown about as a possibility for Canelo at 160, which I think everybody knew that ultimately Munguia would have to come up to 160. He looks like he was starving himself to try to get to 154. So obviously the move up is a good idea. But as I mentioned to you before in the video prior to this one, I'm I'm not sure that taking on that level of talent is what he needs to be doing right now. But let's talk about, you know, how this came about. So a lot of this news is being broken. It's being broken by Fight Guy's friend Mike Coppinger of the Athletic. He's dropping these gems left and right. So let's talk about why each of these options could happen, right? It looks like September 14th is going to be the date. That's the date the Zone wants. It seems to be the date that Golden Boy and Canelo want. They want to stick to that September 14th date. He fights in September on that, around that time all the time. So it makes sense culturally. Everything's in place for that. But why Callum Smith? If he goes with Callum Smith, which I'm going to be honest, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that's the fight that'll happen. But if he goes with Callum Smith, Canelo already won a secondary title at 168 when he defeated Rocky Fielding at the end of 2018. Rocky Fielding, I'm going to be frank with you guys, Rocky Fielding didn't come to fight. He came to get a payday and to lay down. Even if he'd come to fight, Canelo probably beats him anyway. But the effort that he gave in that fight was pretty shameful, in my opinion. And he just pretty much laid down. That's not Canelo's fault. Just it's what happened. Some people maybe gave Canelo some problems for fighting a guy like Rocky Fielding. But what I think Canelo was trying to do was trying to stay busy in 2018. There was a lot of drama surrounding him, the tainted meat and the canceled fight with Golovkin and all that. So he wanted to stay busy, wanted to get out there. He also wanted to grab another title in another division. Canelo, I think, doesn't like making 160. He's just a thicker built guy, would like to fight a little bit higher than that, even though from a height standpoint, it may not look like the best idea for him, but we'll see. Speaking of height, Callum Smith 6'3". Yeah, and he's the real deal. Like, if you're exclusively an American boxing fan, and I wrote about a lot of this in an article on Forbes, if you're exclusively an American boxing fan, you may not really be up on Callum Smith, but he's from the UK. He's long, powerful, a good boxer. He has one punch knockout, one hitter quitter power. And like I said, he's 6'3". So we're talking about, Canelo giving up 6 inches maybe in height, not to mention some length in the reach as well. That's a tough fight, but Callum Smith's name was mentioned at some point as an option for Canelo. It would give Canelo a chance to win a legitimate title at 168, not a secondary one like the what he captured when he beat Rocky Fielding. And it furthers Canelo's legacy because a win over Callum Smith, if you really ask people who know, that's no pushover kind of a victory. That's serious if Canelo could pull that off. So that's one. That's why he would do that. I can also tell you why he wouldn't. Callum Smith, like I said, is the real deal. And Callum Smith, while the fight might have some love in the UK, in the United States is not going to move the needle as much, even though Canelo kind of doesn't need that anymore. Canelo's just a level of star at this point. It doesn't matter who he fights, it's going to be some attention because he's literally got an entire country nearly behind him, right? So he's going to draw, but of course, the bigger the draw, the more everybody can make off of it. So it is what it is. I don't think that Callum Smith will be the guy because I just think that when you're at Canelo's level, and I give Canelo credit for fighting a lot of tough guys, but when you're at his level, it's a lot about risk reward, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. But Callum Smith is probably, of the four guys that I mentioned, I would venture to say he is the riskiest of all of those opponents. So next, let's talk about why Sergey Kovalev. Kovalev is a champion at 175. We're talking about two weight classes up from where Canelo fights. But in my opinion, that's an easier fight for for Canelo to have. If you were to rank these fights on which one is the easiest to the most difficult, I would say that Kovalev is the second easiest of those fights. And Kovalev's a bigger guy, of course. At one point, was known for his just what seemed like devastating punching power. But Kovalev's 36, and Kovalev suffered two straight stoppage losses to Andre Ward, and then he also was knocked out by Eliter Alvarez. I don't think that Kovalev's the same guy that he used to be. I think that he's been broken down, and I think he is compromised. And I also think that Golden Boy and Canelo know this. And so there's a way for them to win a title at 175. If you think about it, Canelo would have won a title at 154, 160, 168 if you count the secondary title that he got against Rocky Fielding, and then at 175 he'd be a four division champion, which is pretty significant. And he could do it essentially with a path of almost least resistance. Now, some people may have a problem with this, but it is still a 175-pound man who can punch and still is a good fighter. He beat Eliter Alvarez in the rematch. He's supposed to take on Yard, and that fight is already agreed to. But there is a clause in that contract that says the Yard step aside. Obviously, he'd be paid some step aside money to facilitate a Canelo Kovalev fight in September. But per Mike Coppinger and a few other boxing journalists out there, the initial offer to Kovalev, who is with Top Rank, was a low one. So they may go ahead and fight Yard rather than take that what they consider the low ball offer to fight Canelo. So we'll have to see what happens there. But that's the motivation in fighting Kovalev. Now, what's the motivation in fighting Jaime Munguia? Munguia is not ready. He's not ready. I don't know if he ever will be ready. I'm not overly impressed with him just from a skill standpoint, the whole nine. Maybe what I'm seeing and maybe the problems that I have with his overall game have to do with the fact that he was draining himself to get to 154. Maybe that's the case. But I don't think that counts for the fact that he's not refined as a boxer, the fact that his punches are wide, the fact that he maybe stamina has something to do with that. But those are those things. Canelo will pick him apart and tear him up. But one thing I find interesting, I did an interview with Canelo Alvarez before the Daniel Jacobs fight. I posted it on Forbes, and Canelo expressed to me during that interview that he didn't want to fight any more Mexicans. He said that straight out. You know, that didn't get a lot of attention because he said it actually to another a writer as well. Um, Obviously, if he does fight Munguia, he'd be going against that. I don't know what happened that would change his mind on that end, but he did say that at one point. So I found that to be a little bit interesting. That it was a little surprising to me that the Munguia thing came up. I always thought Munguia as a potential future opponent for Canelo, but that was before I lost a little bit of my, excitement for his overall game. I don't think that's a good matchup at all for Munguia. I'm thinking you're talking about ruining his career before it has to be ruined. If you're talking about putting him in there with Canelo or Triple G, I don't think it turns out well. I think it's honestly, I don't even know why Canelo would take that fight, to be honest. I mean, it makes good money, especially in September, September 14th on that weekend. It's so significant to Mexicans and fight fans overall. So I know that there's a lot of attention there, but I don't know that Canelo gets a lot of praise and love for beating up Munguia, which is what's going to happen if that happens. So I don't think that's a good idea at all. Now, obviously, we know what the benefit is of fighting Triple G. It's a trilogy fight. You know, first fight was ruled a draw. Second fight was scored for Canelo. I actually agreed with both decisions, but it was one of those are the kinds of fights where I wouldn't have been upset had Golovkin gotten the decision in either of those fights. I could have easily have seen how it could have gone his way. But according to my scorecards, I scored the first fight a draw, which I don't think anybody's. I scored the first fight a draw. The second fight, I had for Canelo. I acknowledged Golovkin came on, had some moments, same as he did in the first fight, but that's the way I saw it. So I didn't have a problem with those decisions. But as I said, if it had gone Golovkin's way, I wouldn't have said anybody was robbed. It was just that close. So neither guy has definitively beaten the other guy. So there is some level of there's some desire there, right, to have Canelo remove all doubt. He's the better fighter. He can beat Golovkin. Golovkin obviously wants to get a win, get an official win. His people say that he won both fights. Well, of course they're going to say that. If he didn't get knocked out, they're going to say that anyway. But so there's unfinished business there, especially on Golovkin's side. There's more money to be made because it's still a huge fight. Though it's not the middleweight fight I would most like to see. I'll probably do a video talking about that in down the road. But I would personally like to see Canelo move up and not fight at middleweight anymore. I think it would be better for the sport and absolutely better for the 160-pound division for him to move up. So I am actually more for the Callum Smith, the Sergey Kovalev fight, or maybe even a Golovkin fight if it takes place at 164, 168. Because at this point, with those two guys, it's really not about the title anymore. It's really not. It's not about a weight class. It's about those two guys crashing and meeting each other and somebody coming out with a definitive win. Somebody's looking for their Juan Manuel Marquez on Pacquiao moment where we've had some close fights, some disputed decisions, but to punctuate this rivalry, I knocked you out. And something where they're looking for that moment. And so that doesn't have to happen at 160. It can happen at any weight class. That's what I would prefer to see. So those are the four options, and that's why Canelo would fight either of those guys. Now, let's talk about why not for two specific guys, because there's like an elephant, maybe it's two elephants in the room when we're talking about who Canelo should fight next. Why are we not talking about Jermall Charlo? Why are we not talking about Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade? Recently, and we had an interview here on the Fight Guys with Mauricio Suleiman talking about why Canelo was elevated to the franchise champion and Jermall Charlo then took up as the legitimate or the recognized world champion as the WBC. Boo Boo Andrade is already the WBO champion. He just recently destroyed Machi Selecki, and same night actually won a hard fought but very clear unanimous decision over Brandon Adams. But why not? And I'm gonna be honest with you, and I know I understand how this business works. I understand how the matchmaking works. I understand why people fight certain people. I know that a lot of boxing fans are frustrated because they don't see certain fights that they may want to see. But I understand how it works. Not saying it's perfect, but I get it, right? Canelo and I don't think this is the fighter necessarily. I think Canelo is a real fighter, real warrior, and he will fight whoever you put him in there with. But there are people in his camp, promoters and advisors and different things, who may say, no, that's not a good idea. That's not in our best interest. And I think that there are people saying that it's not in Canelo's best interest for him to fight a Jermall Charlo or a Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. We're talking about big, tall, skilled, athletic fighters who could give Canelo a problem, potentially even beat him, right? Now, in Andrade's in Andrade's condition or in Andrade's situation, he doesn't have a huge or major following. He doesn't. He's from Rhode Island or Providence, Rhode Island area. He had that building rocking there. But if you're not a hardcore boxing fan, you probably don't even know who he is. And so here we're talking about Canelo fighting a guy who has the skill and the talent to give him a tough fight or maybe even beat him. But Canelo has far more to lose in fighting that fight than Andrade. Andrade fights the fight, he goes back into relative obscurity as it pertains to or as it relates to casual boxing fans. Canelo loses to Demetrius Andrade and a bunch of people who are not hardcore boxing fans who still are important consumers start going, oh, Canelo lost to some dude named Demetrius Andrade. this is what this is how that works. And they have to decide on Canelo's side whether or not the risk matches the reward. And they're probably thinking that it doesn't. Now, Jamal Charlo is a bigger name. He does solid ratings whenever he's on Fox or Showtime. I believe the fight against Brandon Adams peaked at about 443,000 viewers, which isn't fantastic. His last fight did a little bit better. I think it was against Matt Karbov, but he was on the same card with his twin brother, Jermell Charlo, who lost that fight to Tony Harrison. But he's a bigger name. I mean, look at it. I mean, we had at one point before Jermell lost his title to Tony Harrison, he had two identical twins who were world champions, or I mean, Jermall was the interim champion at the time. He hadn't been elevated yet. But we're talking about identical twins, skilled guys. Like I've said for a long time, the Charlos should be the Black Klitschko's. Like I don't think that they're being marketed and promoted in the right way. This think about it. Identical twins, world class fighters. When have we ever seen something like that in the sport? So I think that there's definitely more marketability there and more, you can get more eyes on it. Also, the Charlos got some edge to them. They talk, they can get it going. Demetrius Andrade is not going to do much of that at all. So there is a little bit more of a motivation maybe to fight Charlo. But the problem with Charlo is Charlo's with Paul Heyman and with Premier Boxing Champions and Showtime. So maybe the negotiations aren't as simple. Now, Andrade is with Matchroom, but he's on the zone. So there shouldn't be an issue about the network. So that one's harder to understand. But Charlo, again, is a risky proposition, and he's not nearly as big a fight as it would be to fight Golovkin. It's probably not as big a fight as it would be to fight Munguia because both guys are Mexican when we're talking about Canelo and Munguia. So I just think that's another situation where the people making the decision, maybe including Canelo or not, do not think that the risk matches the reward. So that's why you're not probably ever going to see that fight or those fights. But the question is, who is Canelo going to fight next? I think it's between those four guys: Gennady Golovkin, Sergey Kovalev, Jaime Munguia, or Callum Smith. If I had to bet, if I had to give you my guess right now, I would say it's more than likely going to be Sergey Kovalev. I think that's the guy who he'll get next. That's my prediction. It doesn't have to work out, but that's what I predict. As usual, I appreciate you watching. God bless and peace.